everyone, I'm Christina and I'm introducing Anne Feinstein today, and she is president of Personal Best International. She's a marvellous mentor and coach, a very powerful lady who's actually mentored people for over 30 years and given of her personal best and given and brought out the best in others. And you will find this out today where we actually get into her story, which I'm hoping we're going to get some lovely little gems about things that she's learned along the way, some of her best experiences. And we're just going to discover a little bit today, because I think that's what we all like to know, a little bit about somebody and develop those little gems in there. So that's what we're going to be doing. Hello, Anne. It's lovely to see you there, and lovely across the water and across the pond, because you're in New Jersey, I understand. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to meet all of your friends in your audience. It's really an exciting time that's for people. You know, people can make all kinds of phenomenal decisions as they're getting ready for a new year, a new start, you know, looking over what's happened over the past year and just cleaning the slate. So it's a perfect time for you and I to have a lovely conversation like this.
I totally agree. I think that it's a wonderful thing, and there's so much that can be gained out of these circumstances. I mean, here's you and me talking across the Zoom cyberspace and enjoying a lovely conversation, and yet you're thousands of miles away, which I think is remarkable. So we're looking to a new year and some fantastic things taking place. And so yes, let's just talk a little bit about because I'm going to start a little bit at the beginning, because I like that. I mean, obviously you grew up in Bucks County, and you with your mum and your dad and two younger brothers. What was it like growing up there? Because of course it's quite different, because we don't know much about the US. So give us a little bit about your background and how you found your childhood growing up in Bucks County.
You know, we were lucky. My parents grew up in Philadelphia, and their dream was to be able to buy a home out in the suburbs. And the suburbs were this brand new development that this developer was building called Levitt Town. His name was Levitt, so he created Levitt Town. And he actually did this in multiple locations. And this was for a lot of the guys that were coming back from World War II, and they were looking to create families and do all kinds of beautiful things. And as a result of that, you know, they had these amazing opportunities to buy these homes at very, very good prices. And, you know, they were like, we said they were dropped out of the helicopters, you know, boom, 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 boom. But you know what? It gave us a beautiful suburban childhood where, you know, the doors were open, people had neighborhoods, they had families, they had friends. We played on bikes, you know, we drove around, and we just had a lot of good times and good fun. And it was a lovely time to be brought up in the world, because family was everything. You know, we got home at dinner time, no matter where we were, we got together, we had a family dinner. Dad would come home from work. My parents were very affectionate with each other. So, you know, dad and mom would walk dad would walk in the house. Mom would have put her makeup on, which I guess kind of an indication of why, you know, I say, you know, get yourself put together. And no matter what was going on during her day, you know, she would put her makeup on, fix her hair, and run to the door when he came in the house and give him a hug and a kiss. And I remember friends looking at that saying, do they do that all the time? Well, we didn't think that was strange. We said, of course they do. So that was the kind of, you know, beautiful family environment that I grew up in.
Oh, I love that. So that would explain some of the wonderful things I've come to respect within you about relationships and warmth and the wonderful things that I've actually experienced whilst working with you. I love that sort of thing. I mean, yes, we grew up in an era where there was probably more freedom for that with you enjoying your siblings. I've got two brothers as well, two younger brothers, so I can appreciate that. And it's a lovely experience to have that embodiment and take that with you through life. That's tremendous. I love that. Now, obviously, you went on then you became an English teacher, I believe, and a drama coach, and you were living on your own. And you sort of had a turning point at this. You were sort of in this place, and I can understand because you're very articulate as a speaker that these would appeal to you. But you then went on into the corporate world, so you had a defining moment in your life. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because that's obviously something that everybody wants to know about. What changed and how did you move from one place to another?
You know, the one thing I have to say, my parents gave us a very good structure and foundation, and education was really important to them. And being the oldest with, as you mentioned, two younger brothers, you know, I was just absolutely planning to go away to college. Went away to college, studied secondary education with English and theater arts. So I was the crazy drama coach and drama teacher that taught English in high school. And then I woke up one day, it was about 2 years in, and I realized that, you know, there were certain stipulations that were placed on us. First of all, there was a limitation in terms of income potential. And secondly, I had the vice principal of the school come into my classroom where we were doing plays and I was teaching theater and education. I had kids up on desks. They were, you know, acting out a scene from different things that we were reading. And all he could focus on was the regulation level of where the blinds should have been. And it was at that moment I had one of those aha moments. Like, I had just gone away and studied in England. I had learned a lot of these techniques for teaching children at different levels, 10th graders, you know, at certain levels, all the way up to seniors. And I was really frustrated when that happened, because I thought to myself, if this is what I'm going to face for the rest of my life, I'm not going to be one of those teachers that I saw in the teachers' lounge area who were disgruntled and unhappy. And so I had an opportunity to move to Rhode Island. I was actually getting married, and my husband, my first husband, I was married very briefly early on, but he was also a teacher. And when I moved up there, I made a decision to change and move into corporate consulting. And I started doing executive search consulting. And I really loved it. And so it became a natural thing for me to move from one to the other because I made that decision. And, you know, that's what I always say to people, don't allow yourself to get stuck. If you're not happy with the circumstances, then decide to make a decision to move on. And so this came very naturally. So when I was up there, I did that for several years. And then we eventually moved down to New York when he got a PhD fellowship at New York University. And I felt like I was a fish in my water when I got down to New York. It was just such an exciting place to be. And I also realized that the skill sets that I had along the way were very appropriate for moving into, again, another corporate consulting position. This time, I was able to move into a phenomenal place, a very well-respected global consulting company on Park Avenue. So I was very excited about that. And I became eventually the director of research for the entire consulting practice. And I have to say, at a young age where everyone else was considerably older and were very Ivy League and very, very sophisticated New York style, I felt very excited by the learning experience of being around people like that. You know, top level executives who are now doing consulting. I worked with Brooke Shields' father, who was a phenomenal man, a wonderful guy. And actually, I met Brooke several times when she was a child, who would come into the office. And we did a lot of things in the technology field. We did things in the consumer packaged goods area. So I got a chance to see the corporate workings of major management teams from both sides, you know, from the side that I was working on in corporate consulting, but also from behind the stage, so to speak.
But let's underpin that, because making a decision to do something that's right for you in your life is a very important, if you like, keynote. And then, as you say, where you're getting into this situation where you're taking on something very young, establishing an understanding and actually paying attention to how the corporate world works is a huge statement. And actually allowing yourself to grow into that role, because for a lot of people, they're scared of things like that. And yet when they do it, they flourish, as you've just said, you're just flourishing in this environment. I'm quite a little bit going to go back slightly, because you said you actually trained with drama in England. I did hear that correctly.
Yes.
And we're in England.
Studied at Leeds University.
Oh, yeah.
It was part of a PhD, master's program and a PhD program. Excellent. Through New York University. And that's where I met my first husband that summer. So it was a summer love. And, the whole theater and education was what brought us together. And then when we came to New York, and I went into corporate consulting, he went into another field, and it's kind of where things kind of drifted. So this is what happens in life. People have paths and people have directions, and sometimes, that's what has to happen. And we left on very, very good terms, but I went in a different direction. And during the time of being with the corporate consulting environment is where I met my current husband, David, who was a business manager at the time, working for people in the entertainment industry. He was actually sharing space with one of my employers. He had an accounting practice in his office space. So that's how we met. And what was really cool is that I began to take some of the skill sets that I had and was helping him to market his business further into the artistic, theater arts, Broadway people, other music people, and actually helped him to expand his business. So kind of got my interest going in that direction and opened my eyes to entrepreneurship. He was the epitome of entrepreneurship.
I love that. I'm going to cut in a little bit, because I've read about David. His story, his backstory is fantastic. And when I first saw him, I didn't realize he was the same chap that I'd come across years ago. So I've been in casting as well as a creative director, so I'm familiar with theatre and all of the above. And I come across your lovely husband a while ago when I was working with other people in casting, and it's just part of something we all knew about. And so it was like quite interesting. And then I saw you, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's it. They're married. That's the lady. And so it was quite nice. So I enjoy that. Tell us a little bit about that, because you make an incredibly wonderful partnership and couple, and you've been together for a long time, I know. But you really complement each other. So because people want to know about relationships, especially in a day and age when relationships are they're quite rubbishy for people. They fall apart quite easily, but yet you've got this incredible relationship, and you share that with other people, the epitome of relationships, love, and you do actually, it oozes off you in a good way, and in that you give that out as well. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
People ask us all the time, we've been together now for 40 years, actually over 40 years. I have to sit down and actually do the calculations. And what's amazing is that all throughout this time, we really became partners, life partners. I was very, as I mentioned to you before, I helped him early on with the marketing and expanding his business, which was a business management accounting practice. He had 13 people working for him. And in Manhattan, as he expanded his business to that level, in Manhattan, it's incredibly expensive to have a business like that with 13 employees in a luxury building. Okay. And we eventually moved to Lexington between 34th Street between Park and Lexington. And he had his office in the penthouse. So I got this experience eventually when I moved into having my own business of being able to work from home. Okay. But he initially was doing that, and basically because he actually took the elevator from the apartment we had up to his office. And so everything that we did was intertwined together. As he was building his practice and getting the excitement going in the entertainment industry. And of course, he was excited because of these amazing people he was meeting. And it was a who's who of, I can't believe I just met. I mean, truly, again, this is during the 90s into the early 2000s, that period of time. So, the whole rock and roll industry was huge and exciting, between what was happening over in the UK and what was happening here in the States. And he had a partnership, a really significant partnership with a management firm over in the UK. So there was a lot of going back and forth. So that's probably where you came across his name.
Definitely.
And he had a very big and beautiful reputation as being a really good guy, who was really well loved and respected. And, he was fun to be around. And that was kind of unusual for someone who was a business manager accountant. He wasn't the straight-laced business manager and accountant, which obviously, a little theatrical to it, long hair, and he sort of fit right in with his clients. So it was a lot of fun. And it was a fun time for both of us. At that particular time, he gave me the freedom to do what I wanted to do, and I have to say that that's part of a marriage. A good, healthy marriage is when everybody respects each other.
Absolutely.
I respected what he did and looked up to what he was doing, and, was so proud of what he accomplished. He was a Bronx boy. So, this is not something with a silver spoon in his mouth. He built it. And I was really proud of that and what he had accomplished. And the same thing he felt for me as I moved from, he knew I was a teacher. This was before his time. But then I moved into corporate consulting, became director of research. He was so proud of that accomplishment. And then when I made the decision, looking at him and seeing he had, he was an entrepreneur. He had his own business. And I just kept saying, you know what, I don't want to work 60, 80 hours a week for the rest of my life for somebody else's business. And I kept looking at, what are the positive things that he has going on because he owned his own business. And then there were a lot of not so positive things because of, like I mentioned, the very high overhead, incredible, issues with clients, and a lot of issues with employees and so forth. Good people, but you have responsibilities there, and you're the last one. You turn the lights off at the end of the day, and you turn the lights on in the morning, and you're the last one to get paid because everybody else has to be taken care of.
Absolutely. I can relate with that, because these points are very valuable, particularly when people are in business or they've had responsibilities or they've come up the corporate ladder. The responsibilities get intense. They don't necessarily have the rewards for that. I mean, obviously, from my point of view, as you know, Anne, I've been with Nick a long, long time as well, and we've known each other forever, and we've grown together. So I totally relate with that. And we've established where our relationship sits, and also within the entrepreneurial side as well, because we came to have a very big company, and we've had all of the massive overheads and all of the staff and all of the responsibilities of that, and then with the last people to get paid after everything else has been taken care of. So these are valuable lessons, because there are better ways to make, obviously, money. There are better if you like, vehicles to do that with. And some of the things that you've worked on in the past with mentors and within, if you like, in the business sector, you've worked with some amazing people to establish better ways of life, mentoring with exceptionally cool people. Perhaps you'd like to, I mean, obviously you've mentored with David, because actually it's a mentoring in itself, and you're a mentor now yourself. But, tell me a little bit about some of the people perhaps that you've met along the way that have perhaps had an impact on you. I know you mentioned somebody back when you were actually in New York working as a director, but yeah, give us some highlights with that, because you're mentoring now, but you have been mentored and established a wonderful array of people around you that you work with, of course.
No, I think my awareness was awakened. I think the best way to explain that was when a friend of mine started sharing with me some of these tape cassette albums of Brian Tracy and Wayne Dyer, and there were several others I could name, various, Jim Rohn and so forth. And we started listening to these tape cassettes together. And the reason we did that, Christina, is that we had our apartment in Manhattan, and then on the weekends we would go out to our little country retreat that we had a couple of horses and a little mini farm on the weekends. And so we had this hour and 15-minute drive back and forth through the Lincoln Tunnel. And I always say, the Lincoln Tunnel represented to me freedom to get out of the city, but it also represented David wanted to get up in the morning on Sunday morning, get everything packed up and ready to go. So we go back through the Lincoln Tunnel, which I hated because that meant that it was back to the 60 to 80-hour work week. But what I loved was that time that we turned our car into an experience. And we started listening to these, the creation of having your own life and what you would want in your own life. And I just couldn't get enough of it. It was feeding my brain with the idea of being able to create vision and setting your own goals and creating the kind of life that you want. And these early changes started here. They started in my head. I mean, I was always, like my mother would say, you were always very courageous in the things that you did. And there were times when she'd say, because of you, I did this, this, and this, because you set such a good example. Well, the example was kind of set because David was so courageous. So when I was living with a courageous person, it made me more courageous. And I'm sure in a lot of ways it went back and forth. That energy goes back and forth if you're being affirmative of what everyone in your home is doing and with your partner. So listening to these things and becoming more aware that we could make changes in our lives, that was very impactful. So one of the first people I ever met was Wayne Dyer.
Oh,
and that was the coolest thing because I had spent so many weekends riding back and forth listening to him. And we developed this wonderful connection and relationship through a friend of mine. And he was an amazing person, an amazing man. Now, of course, I've had other mentors along the way as a result of moving into entrepreneurship. But one of my first mentors was back in the consulting company. And a special guy. I worked very closely with him on a lot of big projects, and he was also very entrepreneurial like David. He had his own practice within our practice. And he would say to me all the time, Anne, the only security you'll ever have in your life is what you create for yourself. And I'm telling you, Norm Sanders, bless your heart, wherever you are in the world or in the universe, you helped me to create a path that changed my life. And it was by understanding that we create our own security. We can create whatever we want. So, having that kind of a mentor, having the mindset, being able to create change, and then living with someone who was accepting of that and actually quite excited by that. The excitement of it. And I needed to have somebody like that who also, had a pizzazz and excitement, because I think we all, we vibrate on that energy.
Absolutely. It goes back and forth, doesn't it? And I mean, when you're talking, I'm getting inspired because, you've absorbed the teachings and now you teach them, as you said, into the entrepreneurial space, if you like. But I absolutely love that. I mean, I love Wayne Dyer. Oh gosh, I know he's passed now, but oh my gosh, a big favorite. And I've been lucky enough in the past to meet some exceptional people ourselves. And they have such an amazing impact on you, and you take it with you, don't you? I love Brian Tracy, one of our early mentors back in the day, and I think
we all felt that they were talking to us.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you there. Absolutely.
They had those voices that would just, sink into your every fiber of your body, and you'd be listening to them on, the audio in your car or however, and you just could visualize this world that you were creating. And some of them would say, sit down and do a vision board. I mean, David and I sat down one day. I went out and bought all these magazines. I got a piece of cardboard and I sat down with scissors. We were out at our house in New Jersey, and I handed him a pair of scissors and I said, start cutting out pictures of how you would like our life to be. And you had to see the look on his face. What? What? And I said, we're going we're going to create a vision board between the two of us of how we want our life to be. Because I don't want to spend the rest of my life working 60 to 80 hours a week for someone else. And I want to be able to create what I want, every aspect of my life, my health, so it's my physical, my spiritual, my emotional, my financial, all those pieces of my life. And I said, and I want to do that with you together, and we're going to lay it all out and make a map of it. So he went along with this. Christina, this thing sat on our refrigerator, okay, for several years. And somehow, we'd see it every day. And every day we were out there in New Jersey, at the house in New Jersey. And we packed up the house, and I found it after we had moved in back into Manhattan. And I opened it up, and I sat there and I looked at this and I went, oh my God. And I took it in and I showed it to David. We had achieved everything that we had wanted on that vision board. So it made me even more excited about teaching this to other people and saying, it's going to sound really weird, silly, and crazy, but the more you get, and I'm sitting here right now looking at the new vision board that I had just made, because what a better time than 2020, okay, to clear out the old and bring in the new. So I had been working on a new vision board. And I have to tell you that as a result of the new vision board, things have been happening in the last several months that are just so spectacular because of that decision. It gave me that new energy. It gave me that direction. It reaffirmed for me what I wanted. It gave me visual pictures of what I wanted. And so, I go back to that early day, but I say again, it's a well worth activity.
Absolutely. I'm going to second that because I'm finding these are very poignant and pieces that people need to do. There's the very basics of their actual establishing the parameters, the empowerment, the things they want, the visualization. And I remember when we did that back in the day, and we're living in the house, the property that we never thought we had. We were living in this pokey, horrible little place that needed a lot of work done to it. And we were setting up this vision board. And I said to Nick the same thing, because I'm a creative person. I said, oh, we're going to snip this up. We're putting this down here. We're putting it on the one. Started building these, going, and anyway, there I am doing this thing. We had the car, you had the car, the house, it all came to fruition. And it was actually later, as you said, we came back into this vision board, we put it away, and we realized that the house we wanted by the sea, these things that we said we wanted to do, and these experiences, they'd come to be. And I was just like, wow. And so I think, you have to experience it to appreciate it, but people need to understand that it starts here, doesn't it? And it starts in your heart, and then building that existence. I love this, Anne. This is so very powerful, as I knew it would be. For me, I find you a very inspirational lady, a great leader. And for women, I think this is a very powerful statement. I know that we both have very good men behind us, but I love this quality within the expression, the empowerment that you're offering the women. And you've obviously grown into the leadership, but I think somehow you might have had some of that already. But for people who want to find themselves in terms of finding their own empowerment, perhaps finding their own space, or taking on some leadership qualities, or establishing themselves in the entrepreneurial world, what sort of advice would you give them? Would you sort of guide them a little bit with that? I mean, we've talked about quite a few things. Getting good mentors is a good place to start. I realize that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that you have to make that decision to become the leader that you want to be, and you wish you had, is leading you. And I think that that's a decision that we make, and then we learn how. Okay, so it's not the other way around. We learn how and then we decide. It's like we decide and then we learn how. So I can remember watching people on stage that were speaking. The same thing people will say, you do a lot of speaking, you talk in front of large, audiences of people. How do you do that? I mean, I have to tell you that I was spitless the first time I did it, because it was something I had never done before, even with the theater background, even with the experience that I had early on. I wasn't the person on stage. I was the person behind the stage, like the creative director, the person who was directing the theater musicals at the school and doing that sort of thing and pushing everybody up. So I was always the organizing person. And then one day, sort of similar to deciding that David was not the only one that could do business development, all of a sudden I said, you know what, I can do it just as good as he can. It's the same decision, okay? Deciding, you know what, I can do that. And I decided to do it. And then I decided to really study and see other people and how and what I liked about other people. And the one thing I noticed, there was this wonderful man who he had been a football coach. Now I'm a 5'3.5" female, petite. This guy was bigger than life on stage. And he could take a stance on stage where he'd plant his 2 feet and then he would barrel this voice out. But the thing I came away with was how much I loved hearing him because he was so real and funny. And up until that point, I was more of the teacher. It had to be perfect. It had to be, absolutely, spectacularly well done, totally technically amazing. And then one day I woke up and I said, you know what? Doing it and having fun and actually laughing is probably more fun, and getting it done is better than perfect. So I decided that I was going to learn the skill set in order to be better at that, but I was also going to make it a fun experience. And so I started working with a very dear friend of mine, Randy Gage, who is an amazing speaker, okay, an amazing author, speaker, coach, positive prosperity coach and so forth. And he and I were working together at the time, and he kind of put his arm around me and he gave me the opportunity to be a speaker outside of our company at a big event. I got a phone call. I was actually dealing with a flood in the house, and I had just gone upstairs to lay down. I was exhausted because I'd been moving bags of stuff, from one part of the basement to another with this flood. And I was throwing things over my back and I could barely breathe. I was probably banging my back, and I went upstairs and I went to lay down, and David comes in the room and I can feel him in the room. And I open one eye and he says, honey, okay, Art Jonak just called. They want you to speak at the mastermind event. Okay, and to which point I am frozen, okay, laying in bed, frozen, thinking to myself, the mastermind event, I was at that point in my own business for many years. I had never spoken outside of the organization, but I had done big type of events, and certainly big auditorium, big venues, but I'd never spoken in this kind of environment. And all I could imagine were all the people that were speakers were getting bigger and bigger on the walls in my room. And I'm laying in bed thinking, can I do this? Can I not do this? Should I do this? Would I do this? Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can. He goes, well, I told him you'd call him back later. So Randy had recommended me to Art Jonak. Art Jonak and I knew each other. I'd been to many of those mastermind events. So I'm watching a program that night where Oprah is being interviewed by, I just lost her name, the gal that is the CEO of, it'll come to me, of Facebook. And she's being interviewed by her, and it's a wonderful going back and forth. And Sharon Sanborn, I think that's her name. Anyhow, going back and forth, and they're talking, and she asks Oprah this question. She says, what's it like moving from being a presenter into owning your own network? What kind of a transition was that? And I remember her answering this question. She said, for 25 years, and at that point I'd been in my own business for 25 years. She said, I did the same thing day in, day out, never had any issue with it. It was amazing. And then one day I woke up and I realized that my entire body was filled with some energy that I had never felt before. And she looked up and she said, Cheryl Sanborn, sorry. She said to Cheryl, I realized that was fear. I had never felt fear at that level before moving into networking, the network. And I looked at this situation. I'm thinking Oprah and Cheryl talking about this, it is divine intervention. And I just went, that's it. You know what? If Oprah can feel fear, Ann Feinstein can feel fear. And that was the decision I made. I looked at David. I said, I'm calling them tomorrow. I'm in. I'm going to do this.
So feel the fear and do it anyway. I love that. That's it. I mean, we all got to grow into these things. I mean, we're so scared. As you said, all of this experience is about empowerment and then taking the opportunity and having the courage, because you had the courage to step forwards and you made a decision to step forwards. I mean, these are the things that everybody needs to do in their lives. Hey, we're all scared half to death of a lot of things. I mean, and then you took this incredible opportunity with these incredible people. I mean, who doesn't know Randy? I mean, it's like just taking these steps forward is so encouraging. And dare I say it, even being female and taking those steps forward as a woman is incredibly empowering. And a lot of women today have the freedom and the liberties to be who they want to be more, but they still need that encouragement, as you say, listening to that and thinking, well, oh my gosh, if she felt the fear, I can do it. I can relate with that entirely.
And it's so funny because then when I called and was speaking to Randy, he said, so what are you going to talk about? So and I'm telling him about what happened. He goes, that's it, darling. Okay, you're going to talk about dancing with your fear.
Oh, I love it.
And I looked at him and I went, oh my gosh. I mean, what a perfect scenario to share a story and share. And the way you said, just come up with your opening, your closing concept, what you want to talk, 3 little stories in between that will share important aspects of how you overcome fear. So that sort of became my my area that I enjoyed teaching people, because I think that the biggest issues that people face in their life and not stepping into their greatness is by allowing fear, okay, or other people's opinions to keep them back. And, I'm so lucky because having friends like them, to support that, and my husband to support that. I mean, today I have the opportunity of working together with some amazing people. I'm working with a guy named Tim Edwards, who again is another powerhouse professional, who we are the motto between us is I've got your back.
You've got a fabulous relationship with Tim. I had the privilege of meeting and working with Tim myself. A marvelous individual. What a beautiful heart on the man. He's tremendous. And, you have these almost warm, inspirational, loving conversations with a man that's got so much to share and so much knowledge. I mean, you're having these sort of lovely banters with different qualities about it, and then all of a sudden these little gems just come flooding out. It's like, whoa, this is so great. You have such wonderful synergy with these people, and I'm not surprised, because as a leader yourself and having helped so many people in these years to find their space, face their fears, overcome things, find their entrepreneurial and true selves, their authentic selves, perhaps. You must have some stories or have a feeling when people succeed as a coach and as a mentor. There must be a wonderful experience behind that. You must feel in your heart, or some experience that I'd like you to share with people, because you've coached so many people. You've been in such magnificent places. You've been on so many great stages, if you like, touching hearts and touching lives. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's part of the whole gig of being part of a beautiful a culture, if you like.
You talk about culture and about expansiveness in your life, and coaching is part of the relationships that you build with people. Okay, and I think that the earliest relationship, I'll take you from the earliest to the most current. The earliest relationship came from just the experience of having starting a business in Manhattan and seeing that we could expand this business not only throughout New York, but then to have an opportunity to expand it into other states. I mean, somebody said, think nationally. And I thought, think nationally? They must mean New Jersey. Think nationally, they must think, well, Pennsylvania. And I started, as you start to think things, this is one of the things that I teach people, as you start to think things, you start to put plans into motion and you start to implement and take action. So one of the first things that happened was I thought, well, I'm going to start to think nationally, and a national business occurred, started to develop, and it was wonderful. And eventually I was able to leave the corporate world and do my business from home, building something on a domestic level. And then David and I decided to, and this is early on, before the internet and before Facebook. I know I'm dating myself, and people are going, there was a life before that? Yes, there was. And we put this little tiny little advertisement, and it was so poorly written, but that's what I knew how to do at the time, in the New York Times, about our business and wanting to expand. And this gentleman from Israel, who was a dentist, responded to the ad, in addition to a whole bunch of very strange people. So we had to weed through a lot of very strange people. And this beautiful man appeared, and his wife, and they wanted to expand the business in Israel. So my first coaching came from the opportunity to expand to first of all, experience the cultural life of expanding as a Jewish couple into Israel, to bring a business to Israel, which we felt very proud of. This is back in the late 80s, okay, where having home-based businesses was not as popular as it might be today. And, okay, a war in the middle of this, as we're just expanding the business. Now, I mentioned to you, I grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and I can remember my mother, learning, and, yes, she has a business, it's national, now it's going international, and she's doing this business over in Israel and so forth. And I remember saying, Mom, I'm leaving for Israel. I'm going to go over to Israel for the first time next week. And she said to me on the phone, didn't they just have a war? And I said, yeah, but that was over last week. I mean, it's fine. Everything is cool. I'm going to get on a plane and go. And the first group of people over there was the first group of people that I coached. And we built a huge business, a multi-million-dollar business that expanded from Israel into Europe, and then eventually into other parts of the world. Now that came from that little tiny crazy ad. So I say to people, implement what you think, okay? Take the steps, okay? And be open to what happens. Don't close yourself down. So then, fast forward, now we're talking recently. So I have 30 years of experience in our profession, and all these new things have gone on in the world. You have so many social media activities going on, and you have amazing automation, and you have amazing potential in magnetic marketing and so forth. So I went out looking for a coach, okay? Because I wanted to learn some of the newer skills and techniques. And along the way, I met this terrific gal. Her name is Brandy Shaver. And as a result of that connection, okay, I began to learn from her. She showed me a whole world, okay, of amazing things, and did it with such grace and such caring and love. And I learned all these new things that I was able to bring back to my team and teach my team. And amazing things were going on in our business. And then she turned around and said to me, would you coach me on the importance of leadership and duplication and how to do the business correctly? I would like to be able to do those things for my team. And the more we worked together, the more we fell in love with each other. And we just had this divine, beautiful friendship that occurred. And eventually we were able to find the right vehicle. And that's what we're doing now together. So
yeah, I can see that, because I'm going to interject a little bit. The caring, the sharing, and the rapport you've got, and I've had privilege of being a party to some of the things that have been shared there. They're amazing. I mean, I'm catching up. I come from an era before some of these the cyberspace, so I do appreciate. I used to copy and paste things back in the days. So an editor and putting on a copy and my adverts up. But yeah, I think this inspirational, beautiful relationship you've got, and then sharing. One of the things I've noticed in your story, and I'm sort of improving this a little bit, but Anne, is that you've got such great synergistic relationships with people, and in this you've all grown and everybody's grown together, and you've kept these relationships. You're saying about Randy, and you're talking about Brandy now, and you're talking about other people in the past, and you've kept these beautiful relationships for all of this time. To me, that's the magic of living. I mean, when we can actually establish beautiful relationships, we can keep them alive, and then we can share and grow and establish together. The big message in some of the things you've shared today is that. And ironically, when I was first looking at this interview, I was thinking, do you know what? I'm really getting a buzz for this beautiful synergistic relationship thing that I'm feeling. And being a feely sort of person, I'm thinking it's there, and I'm hearing that all the way through this. And for me, that's a bit of the magic. It really is the magic. And I've observed your relationship, say with Brandy, and I can feel it. It's palatable. But these sorts of magical things you're sharing are really the underpinning of the basics of what it's all about. I mean, I'm going to lead on to the fact that you've connected with great mentors, you've coached many people. It goes without saying. You've stood on stages with thousands of people, you've done magnificent things, but it's the people's lives you've touched along the way and the people you've taken with you that we're getting the message here about, which is the exciting bit. And I can understand even your relationship when I see you and Tim talking back and forth. I think, oh, what a lovely little sort of, yeah. And it's just magical. So this, in my mind, this whole interview's got so many little gems and fabulous pieces in there. So many things I wanted to comment on myself. And when I had a dry mouth the first time I ever went on stage, I was actually hyperventilating. I was 20 something. I was like, oh, don't get me on all, but you do it anyway. And everybody loved me because I just sort of thought, that's it, I'm having fun. The very thing you said, I found my space. Because I'm a funny person, I can just improv and I just enjoy people anyway. And I thought, well, once I throw away this and I figured out that these people know better than me, and that they can do it and they feel fearful, then I can do it. These sorts of messages are what I'm really, really receiving, and I'm sure the audience is really absorbing, which is the most important part of all. I mean, we've covered a lot of things here, and I'm quite keen to know where your passions lie right now. I know that you've recently joined forces with a company that you refer to as your last Rodeo,
Yes.
and that I'd like to know a little bit more about that and about the current global challenges that we're facing and how that's sort of impacting on you, where you're sort of going to roll it out from there, because there's so much content here, but that's the next steps, the way we're going to look into as well, which would be brilliant.
Well, Christina, the I think the real issues today, which I mentioned to you earlier, is that there's so many challenges. People are going to bed at night. They're praying for financial solutions. There's so much stress for so many families today, dealing with health issues, the finances, the unnerving of what's going to happen tomorrow, the next day, and so forth. And so, I, over the last year, was really evaluating what I wanted to do in the next stage of my life. I'm at a stage of my life where what the decisions that I make and the people I associate with are really important, because I want to make a good decision when I bring people to an environment. I want to make sure that I can tell them that I have looked at this very carefully. I have evaluated from the top all the way down. I want integrity around me. I want to feel the energy of people standing next to me that have the same focus and the feelings about people. And I never want to have to look over my shoulder and wonder, what's going on and who's doing what. We all have a clear focus of what we want to accomplish. And it had to have certain things in place. I call them the non-negotiables, because I have negotiated in the past and I have settled in the past, and I was not going to settle this time around. And this is around the time that I met Tim. I found that, again, there's special people that come into your life where you light each other, like two candles light each other. And we realized that we were on exactly the same wavelength. We're about the same age. I'm his older sister, as he calls me. but we realized we were on the exact same wavelength. And I had this terrific partner. We're going to go out there and we're going to find what we want. Okay. And we both sat down and made a list of non-negotiables. And the craziest thing was we exchanged them really fast. He said, okay, send me yours, I'll send you mine. They were the exact same non-negotiables. And that's when I knew that he was the right person to go out into the world to find it. And so it took us a while because we had to really look at a lot of different situations. Some came close, but they weren't, check, 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 or we didn't feel that there was a wanting to really work together with us. There was a sense of this is the way it's going to be, and that was not negotiable. So as a result of that, we found what we were looking for. We found incredible partners that were looking to expand into the United States and throughout all of Europe, including Russia, and that they really wanted this, our type of leadership. They loved our culture, the kind of culture that we wanted to create. And we both felt this, this sigh that we had found our home. They were also willing to do the things that were necessary to make it even better than what it was when we first found it, in order to take it to the level of those non-negotiables. So when that comes about, that's magical. You know that you're in the right place. And so you can easily attract and bring in people, okay, and say to them, like I said to Brandy, I said, you've got to look at this. I want you with me. You've got to see what we have here. And as a result of that, when she saw what it was, and it was exactly what we needed to do to work together. And the same thing has happened. I've got several others that are also working together with me that I can't discuss right now. But the exciting thing is that there's a lot of things percolating. And because of that, what you mentioned before, there's a trust. I base my life on trust. If I trust something, I feel it instinctively. And in the past, I haven't trusted it, and I was right. I should have made the decision based on that instinct. So I say to people, be clear on what you want. Don't settle for the mediocrity of life. Don't settle. Life is too damn short, and we have all found that this past year. Okay, it's like I said to David the other day. We took out our good dishes. We were looking at our good dishes for Thanksgiving. That's what it was, for just the two of us. And he said, so what do you want to do with these dishes? And I looked at him and I said to him, you know what? We're going to use the good dishes. We're not putting the good dishes away for another day. It's the same thing. Don't put it away for another day, waiting for another day, or waiting for change, or waiting for something to happen. Okay, take the dishes out and use them. Decide that you're going to make a change in your life and going into 2021. Do it. Okay, find the right people that you want to work with, that like, and trust. Do it. Okay, look at the things that you're not happy with in your life. Okay, and if you can't make the adjustments there, then make a change. Okay, I can't help but say to you, and I was writing this for a Facebook post, when you focus on the good gets better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay? When you focus on the good gets better. If you're focusing on all the issues and the problems and the negativity in the world, that's what envelops your life. Okay, I just rule that out. I don't want those people around me. I don't want that negativity around me. And I have an environment and a culture now surrounding me that is all positive, with good people, positive people. We laugh, we get crazy together. We have fun together. We're creating something magical, and it's going to be amazing what we've got going. But it's because we respect each other, we trust each other, okay? And we have created this culture that only accepts that energy into that space. And I think that's the best lesson that we can all learn from this past year in order to make that kind of a change in our lives. wonderful friendships with you, with Nick and Liam as a result of that, because of that attraction that attracts.
Absolutely. I totally second that.
Okay.
I think
And that's kind of been the message here.
I think the message is powerful. You're a powerful lady with great message, great heart, and that comes across. And everything you're saying is coming from that place. We are in a great culture. We've got a great time of change. People think the pandemic's a negative. No, it's a positive. There's so many great things here. There's so much empowerment at people's hands. And I agree with you. We were looking for warm people, warm place, warm situation. We found that culture ourselves. And I second every word, and I'm not going to underpin that fantastic message that you've given everybody at the end, other than to say, please listen. Anne's got it. I mean, we've had a fabulous interview. It's just rolled beautifully. You've got so
Thank
much to share, and I know there's a whole load more there. And, I'm looking forward to working with you, and I'm enjoying every moment of it. And as I'm getting to know you, Anne, I'm feeling that synergy, that love, and I'm going with my heart. And I'm having a great time, and I really enjoyed it this afternoon. From my point of view, I know it's early in the day for you, but it's just great, and we just got to get that message out. And I'm looking forward to sharing that with everybody. And thank you very much for your time, and thank you for a
you.
wonderful interview. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon.